Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Petty Politics. So, what do we have going on in the world today? So, what if I told you Democrats had spent 30 years fighting these elections, while the Republicans spent 30 years taking control of the country itself? Not just winning offices, controlling the machinery underneath the offices. The courts, the maps, the voting systems, the district lines, the state legislatures, the judicial pipeline, the election boards, the rules itself. And while Democrats kept celebrating presidential victories, Republicans were building a political infrastructure designed to hold power even when they lost the national election. That is the part most Americans don't really understand. You don't understand that. This country did not drift into this minority rule politics accidentally. It was engineered by the Republicans a long time ago, slowly, patiently, strategically, for decades. And now we're living with the results of this. A Supreme Court reshaped for generations. Voting protections weakened. District maps manipulated mid-decade. State legislatures with enormous power over election systems. A Senate tilted structurally towards smaller conservative states, and a Democratic Party too weak, and suddenly realizing that inspirational speeches do not compete with this institutional control that Republicans have. Because this is the uncomfortable truth about Democrats, and the Democrats are finally waking up to it. You cannot save democracy while refusing to fight for the structures that determine how democracy actually functions. And for years, the Democrats convinced themselves that demographics alone would save them. That history naturally bends towards justice. I get that. That once America became younger, more diverse, more educated, the system would naturally move in their direction. But while Democrats waited for history to save them, Republicans were building power, real power, structural power, the kind of power that survives presidents, scandals, news cycles, public outrages, all the things that Donald Trump is putting into place right now. And the difference changes everything. Because one side, the Republican side, what do? Wait a minute. The Republicans approach politics institutionally. Democrats approach politics emotionally. They got to fall in love with somebody. And the institutional politics beats the emotional politics every single time. This is the real story of American politics, okay? And that realization is now forcing Democrats into a completely new way of thinking about power, democracy, and political survival itself. Otherwise, they ain't gonna make it. For years, honestly, for decades, Democrats convinced themselves that demographic shifts alone would save this damn country. There was this underlying belief that the future itself would inevitably belong to the Democrats. And because of that belief, many Democrats approached politics emotionally instead of structurally. Just dumb. They focused on presidential elections, national speeches, inspirational messaging, celebrity endorsement, viral moments, moral appeal. Meanwhile, Republicans were building the machinery, not messaging machinery, powerful machinery. And while Democrats were chasing moments, Republicans were building systems designed to outlast moments. They targeted the state legislatures, governor's mansion, county commissions, election boards, judicial pipeline, school boards, circuit courts, state Supreme Court, and most importantly, redistricting power. They understood something Democrats are too dumb to either underestimate or outright ignore. Who controls the structure eventually controls the outcomes. And Republicans treated that realization like a decade-long mission, especially after 2010. That was the turning point right there. While Democrats celebrated the Obama presidency, Republicans quietly captured state houses across the country during the Tea Party. And once they controlled those legislatures, they controlled the maps. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Georgia. One by one, districts were withdrawn in ways that protected Republican power, even when Republicans lost the national popular vote. And Democrats kept acting shocked every election cycle when the numbers didn't translate proportionally into representation like they wanted. Just dumb. Democrats dumb on national level. But this didn't happen overnight. This was engineered patiently, strategically, relentlessly. Y'all hit the like and share, subscribe button, please and thank you. Hit the like button, please and thank you. I'm dropping pearls here tonight. Republicans built a political fortress from the ground up, while the Democrats remain obsessed with the White House, as though presidential elections alone determine the future of this country. It don't. It don't matter whether Donald Trump is in the office or not. And every time Democrats warned the system was becoming structurally imbalanced, they were told to relax, be nice, don't escalate, respect institutions, respect the law, protect norms, don't appear partisan, don't be mean, don't stoop to their level. But here's the uncomfortable truth, reality many Democrats are now finally beginning to understand. Norms only work when both sides respect them. And one side stopped respecting them a long time ago, and that's the Republicans. The Supreme Court confirmation wars proved that. The blockade of Merrick Garland proved that. The rushed Amy Barrett confirmation proved that. The aggressive use of redistricting in the past couple of weeks proved that. The weakening of the Voting Rights Act protections proved that. This is no longer a political environment where one side can survive through restraint only. And that realization is creating a psychological transformation inside Democratic politics. They don't know what to do. Because what many Democrats are beginning to understand is that Republicans never viewed politics primarily as persuasion. They viewed politics as institutional control. And institutional control determines what laws survive, what votes count, what districts exist, what rights are protected, what judges rule, what policies stand, and ultimately, who governs. That's why this conversation right here matters, because what we are witnessing now is not simply partisan tension. It is a collapse of the old democratic worldview, the worldview that assumed democracy could sustain itself automatically through good intentions, being nice, moral appeals, and demographic destiny. That worldview failed. The old assumptions failed. The old political etiquette failed. You wonder how Donald Trump became president? This is why. And now the Democrats are confronting a question they spent years trying to avoid. What happens when one side fights institutionally while the other one fights symbolically? The answer is what we see today. The country where presidential power votes increasingly do not translate into proportional governing power. A Senate structure tilted heavily towards rural conservative states. The Supreme Court transformed through procedural hardball. Voting protections are weakened. Mid-decade maps changed. And on realization that Democrats, the moral victories without structural victories don't mean jack. That's where we are now. And let me be clear about that. This conversation is not about abandoning democracy. Let's be clear. This is about confronting the reality that democracy does not protect itself. Democracy survives only when political movements are willing to defend its structures as aggressively as opponents seek to dominate them. And for years, Democrats behaved as though refusing to fully use power somehow made them morally superior. Shut y'all's ass up. If you ain't gonna fight, get out of the fight. Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, get out of the fight. I remember hearing something on a movie saying, I'm going to be nice until it's time to not be so nice. Now it's time not to be so nice. Okay? All of this stuff is getting used by the Republicans. This is the lesson of the last 30 years. Get out of the way. If you ain't willing to fight, dirty, get out of the way. Okay? Because one side is fighting institutionally and the other side is fighting emotionally. This institution side will win every time, every single time. And that realization has brought us to the real question. Are Democrats finally willing to fight for structural power with the same seriousness and ruthlessness that the Republicans have shown for decades, or are you just going to be pussies? Because if the answer is no, then everything else is just performance. We just might as well lay our ass down and die as a party if you ain't willing to fight. Now, I put up 5 things we need to do as Democrats if we gonna take back this country, how we need to take back this country. Number 1, reclaim the maps, achieve state level dominance. First, Democrats must stop obsessing about the White House at the expense of the state houses, because the real battlefield of American politics is increasingly happening inside those state legislatures. That's where maps are drawn. That's where voting systems are shaped. That's where district lines determine representation for an entire decade. Republicans learned this lesson after 2010 when Barack Obama got elected, and built an entire strategy around it to stop Democrats. While Democrats celebrated presidential victories, Republicans quietly targeted state races aggressively and strategically. Y'all got outplayed. Y'all got outplayed. And once they captured those legislatures, they controlled redistricting. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Georgia. One by one, maps were redrawn to maximize Republican durability, even in states where Democrats remain highly competitive statewide, and that fundamentally changed congressional representation nationally. That's why Democrats can win millions more votes nationwide and still struggle to gain proportional House power. The geometry itself became political weaponry, and Democrats kept pretending this was just normal politics instead of long-term institutional engineering. Y'all don't know how to look for the long game. That's why Democrats are slow as hell. You like to govern, but you don't know how to govern strategically either. Okay, I get it. You want to be nice. Fuck that. We done being nice. Fuck that. It's time not to be so nice. That era is about to end. That era is finna end. Democrats cannot continue to surrender structural power while hoping moral arguments alone will compensate for institutional disadvantage. Shh. Don't talk to me about Jack. Talk to us about bread and butter issues. Democrats got to prioritize state legislative dominance the same way Republicans did. Governorships matter. Legislative chambers matter. Secretary of States matter. Country elections, administrations matter. Because whoever controls state government increasingly controls the machinery underneath federal elections themselves. And Democrats need to stop approaching this shit like they pussies. If Republicans aggressively use redistricting power in their states, Democrats got to do the same damn thing. I burn their ass up. I wouldn't have no states. Any Democratic state that was in control, or Democrats was in control, there wouldn't be no Republican district. I'd shut all y'all's ass out. All y'all's ass out. California, out. 17. No, how many is 54? I cut their ass out. It'd be 54-0. No Republican. Illinois, 17-0. Cut their ass out. Virginia, cut their ass out. I cut all the Republicans out. They don't mind doing it to us. As we seen this week, in the last 2 weeks, they don't mind cutting out no black representation. They don't mind cutting out Hispanic representation. They don't care what they do, long as they get power. Okay, so y'all want to play that game? Then we got to play that game too. Every Democratic trifecta state must begin viewing redistricting as structural defense, not as some uncomfortable political embarrassment. No, independent commissions be damned. Get rid of those independent commissions. How the hell y'all learn to tie your own damn hands, tie your own shoes together? I don't know. Just some dumb shit. Get rid of those independent commissions right now. Get rid of it. We ain't doing that. That ain't what we doing no more, because the Republicans don't live by that, so we ain't finna live by that. Okay? Independent commissions that help draw maps, that sound good. It sound noble in theory, but unilateral disarmament is not morality. It's just pussy. It's surrender on a whole nother level. Because as long as one side continues using full redistricting authority while the other voluntarily restricts itself, the imbalance grows. And Republicans understand this perfectly. They get it perfectly. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button, please, and thank you. Hit the like button. I appreciate it. Told you, I'm dropping some knowledge tonight. That's why the Republicans continue fighting so aggressively for state level control, because they know state houses often matter more than Washington itself. Democrats got to absorb that lesson. Y'all got to get with the program, y'all. Power in America increasingly flows upward from the states, which means structural recovery begins there as well. So that's number one. We need to take back authority in the states. In the I don't know whether how many Democratic House, 28. We have 28 states. From top on down, start hitting those, putting money in it. Put money in it. Put money in y'all states. Put money on the internet with these content creators. Put money in it. I don't know how to tell y'all what to do, but I wish y'all let me on the campaign. I ain't gonna have no compunction about shutting Republicans out. If I want to win, I ain't got no problem getting rid of y'all. Oh, the map say 10-1, you ain't getting shit. It's gonna be 11 to Democrat. Get your ass out of here. Just like that. Number two, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Number two, we need to restore the shield. Pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. That needs to be as soon as we get into power. If we get control of the House and we get control of the Senate, even a slight majority, we can pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. If we get into and we win the presidency in 2028, John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Okay, I think we're gonna mitigate the damage this cycle in 2026, but we got to do an aggressive campaign. We need an aggressive campaign come right after this midterm. This midterm, I think they're gonna lose the House. The Republicans gonna lose the House, and maybe they're gonna keep the Senate. But we're gonna have to have an aggressive campaign to win 2028. Number two, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Now, Democrats have to restore that federal shield, which once protected voting rights in this country. Let me play this for you.
It was always about racism. It was never about eggs. It was never about bringing back manufacturing or farming. It was never about quitting NATO or securing the border or expanding ICE or tax cuts or no taxes on tips. All those lies they sold you, MAGA. All those lies they sold you. It was only and ever about racism. And you can see it with the Supreme Court ruling. The Confederate states said, we do not want black people to have the power. We do not want black people to have the power if they have a population base enough to gain congressional districts to have representation. They should only have representation if it's a white person. That's it. And that white person who will represent them will be a Republican. That was all it was ever about. In the span of my lifetime, I was born in 1964, the Civil Rights Legislation, Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, stripped away. Stripped away, just like that. And so then I would like to ask the good white people, not the MAGA people, the reliable Democratic voters, donators, marchers, postcard writers, phone banking, good white people. They don't mind living and being around black people. You see what we mean? You see what we mean when we say, no, Obama did not solve racism. That the entirety of the U.S. government right now, every department, every cabinet, every person put in place by that man, put in place to specifically harm black people. You see it. You see it, right? That has never happened to other people in this country except for indigenous folk.
So we have to restore that federal shield, that John Lewis Voting Rights Amendment Act. Because let's stop pretending the battle over voting access is some ancient historical issue disconnected from modern politics. Let's forget all of that. It's not. The fight over who gets political power in America has never ended. It simply evolved. For years, Democrats made the mistake of believing the major civil rights battles had already been settled permanently by the 1964 Voting Rights Act. But what happened instead? The methods changed, the language changed, the packaging changed, but the underlying struggle over political power never disappeared. And once key sections of the Voting Rights Act were weakened by the Supreme Court, states immediately began moving aggressively to reshape election systems. I ain't lying. Y'all done heard about it. If y'all ain't heard about it, then y'all living in a fucking rock. Every southern state that could change their map to eliminate black and brown communities, they eliminated the black and brown communities. Every state that could do it in the last 2 weeks did it. Polling place closures, reduced early voting, aggressive voter roll purges, restrictions on mail voting, reduced drop boxes, strict ID requirements, district manipulation, and now mid-decade redistricting itself is becoming normal. That matters because voting rights are meaningless if representation itself can constantly be reshaped around partisan advantage. Because once federal oversight weakens, states gain enormous freedom to manipulate the terrain itself. And Republicans understood this immediately. Why the hell we got some dumbass Democrats I don't understand. That's why the weakening of the Voting Rights Act protections became such a massive turning point. That's why this is extremely important. That's why it's a fucking devastating blow. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act restores federal pre-clearance requirements for jurisdictions with documented patterns of discrimination. It increases transparency. It strengthens oversight. And most importantly, it reestablishes the principle that voting rights are not optional depending on which party controls the state legislature. Democrats can no longer treat this as a secondary issue, because once participation itself becomes unstable, every other policy debate becomes secondary. Healthcare, education, labor rights, climate, economic policy. None of that matters if representation itself can be structurally distorted before votes are fully translated into governing power. The John Lewis Act is not symbolic. It is institutional self-defense. Number 3, we have to expand the Union, the United States Union. And by expanding the Union, I mean past DC statehood. Now, these are all unprecedented moves that I'm saying that we need to do as Democrats in order to level the playing field, in order for it to be a fair union, to be a fair playing field, because Republicans ain't playing fair. So we done playing fair. I'm done playing fair with you Republicans. I'm done with that. We have to expand. We have to pass DC statehood. We have to confront one of the clearest democratic contradictions in the United States. Washington, D.C. still does not have full congressional representation. Over 700,000 American citizens live in the capital of the United States. They pay taxes, don't they? They serve in the military, don't they? They obey federal laws, don't they? Yet they still lack Senate representation. And everybody understands the real reason: partisanship. Republicans know DC would overwhelmingly elect Democratic senators and a Democratic House member. So what gets framed publicly as constitutional concerns in reality are structural political calculations by the Republicans. And Democrats need to stop being uncomfortable saying that out in the open. No, y'all some trifling ass motherfuckers, and you don't want nobody to beat you at your own game. But we gonna start beating y'all at your own game. Because Republicans are already making structural calculations constantly. Why do you think we had this all-out attack? They knew they were going to lose the elections. They're still going to lose the election. They're trying to mitigate the loss by cheating. And people say, no, they're not cheating. They're not cheating. Yes, the fuck they are cheating. Okay? The Senate already structurally favors small, rural, conservative states. So that imbalance shapes judicial confirmations, legislation, executive appointments, and national policy already. So DC statehood, making DC a state, becomes one of the few available structural corrections. And if Republicans believe DC would elect conservatives, statehood likely would have happened years ago. Years ago they would have made DC a state. If they thought DC would be voting for conservatives or Republicans. That's the motherfucking truth. So Democrats must stop treating DC statehood like a fringe issue. It is a representation issue. If American citizens are governed federally, taxed federally, and expected to obey federal law, they deserve federal representation, period, and point blank. And strategically, Democrats must recognize what 2 additional senators could mean in an era where razor-thin margins determine the future of the courts, voting rights, labor protections, and healthcare policy, and of which we need all of those things again, right? Republican understands the goddamn numbers. Democrats need to start understanding those damn numbers with equal seriousness with the quickness. Number 4, pass the Freedom to Vote Act. Democrats must stop allowing America to operate under 50 different election systems. Because right now, voting access in the United States depends heavily on where you live. Some states make voting relatively seamless. Others make it intentionally difficult, and y'all know it. That inconsistency creates chaos, confusion, distrust, and strategic manipulation. Republicans benefit from fragmented systems because fragmented systems are easy to manipulate locally. That's why the Freedom to Vote Act matters so much. Automatic voter registration. Everybody got to register to vote. Automatic voter registration. Same-day registration. Everybody got to register. Expanded early voting. Expanded mail voting. Drop box protections. Anti-gerrymandering safeguards. Election worker protections. Campaign finance transparency. Uniform national baseline standards. Stable democracies create consistent systems. They don't allow voting access to fluctuate wildly, depending on which party controls the state legislature or not. And let's stop pretending broader participation is some radical concept, okay? Republicans fight these policies aggressively because expanded participation generally benefit a Democrat. Everybody understands that. That is the political reality beneath the rhetoric. Long lines, polling closures, administrative confusion, registration complications, election bureaucracy itself can become political strategy. And Democrats are finally beginning to recognize that. I hope y'all are beginning to recognize the bullshit that went in. They gave y'all the playbook in 2025. You motherfuckers didn't take it seriously. Nobody took it seriously. The Freedom to Vote Act attempts to stabilize the Democratic participation nationally. not by guaranteeing Democratic votes like some of you goofies think, but by making participation more consistent, predictable, and accessible nationwide. Because democracy cannot function sustainability if every election becomes trench warfare over access itself. That's crazy. This is crazy. Democrats is wild. I don't get it. I don't get why y'all don't understand that we're in a war and we in the trenches and we got to be fighting. Number 5, we got to rebalance the bench, expand the Supreme Court. 5th, and this is where Democrats will face the loudest backlash. They got to confront the Supreme Court directly, because the current Supreme Court is not simply conservative; it's structurally transformative, and Democrats can no longer afford to pretend otherwise. For years, Democrats treated the court almost like a sacred institution floating above politics. It ain't above politics no more. Republicans never viewed it that way. Republicans viewed the judiciary as the single most important long-term investment in American political life. And strategically, they were probably right. Because presidents come and go, right? Congressional majority shift. Public opinion changes. But Supreme Court judges shape constitutional interpretation for generations to come. Republicans understood this decades ago. That's why they built judicial pipelines, confirmation strategies, federalist social networks, long-term institutional planning, and eventually they achieved one of the most significant conservative victories in modern political history: a durable Supreme Court majority capable of reshaping the legal framework of this country for decades and decades. Democrats are now living inside the consequences of that strategy with their dumbasses. Voter Rights Act protections have been weakened. Campaign finance restrictions loosened. Federal regulatory authority narrowed. Redistricting protections weakened. Presidential immunity expanded. And now democracy reforms themselves face enormous constitutional vulnerability. That is the real issue here. Without judicial protection, every legislative victory becomes temporary. Every reform becomes vulnerable. Every structural gain can be erased by a single court ruling. And Democrats are finally realizing something Republicans understood a long time ago. Courts are not secondary to politics. Courts are politics, which is why Supreme Court expansion has now entered mainstream Democratic discussions, because Democrats increasingly believe the current court no longer reflects proportional Democratic reality. And Republicans will scream, court packing, court packing. Y'all trying to pack the court, fuck you. If we had all kinds of, if we had Democratic people on the courts, Democratic 6-3 majority, you motherfuckers would be trying to pack the courts for real, for real. Republicans already transformed the court aggressively through procedural warfare when they denied Barack Obama his picks for the Supreme Court. The difference is Republicans normalize their escalation, they bullshit, while Democrats continue debating whether responding somehow is inappropriate. Fuck that. We're going to be inappropriate. We're going to get in the room and then fart. We're going to get in the room and pull our dick out. That's what time it is. That's what time it is. Congress has constitutional authority to alter the size of the court. It has happened multiple times in American history. The number 9 is not sacred. It is historical precedent, not constitutional mandate. And Democrats are increasingly recognizing that without structural judicial correction, every other reform remains permanently vulnerable. That is a real fear driving this conversation that we're having right now. Right here, right now. Because if the court remains capable of striking down every major democratic reform, then the system itself becomes locked inside permanent structural imbalance. That is why this issue has become unavoidable. Unavoidable. Number 6, and this is our final point. This is the hardest realization for many Democrats to accept. Democrats must remove the moral hesitation that has paralyzed them structurally for decades. Not morality itself, not principles, but the belief that unilateral restraint would somehow preserve this democracy while the other side aggressively consolidates power. Because that belief has failed. That ship has failed. That ship has sailed. For years, Democrats allowed fear of looking partisan, of looking mean, of looking morally corrupt to weaken their willingness to fully use available power. Republicans did not operate under those same assumptions. They just took it and ran. Republicans fought to win. Democrats want to fight to appear reasonable, partisan, friendship, two people getting along. Fuck that. And those are not the same thing. The Supreme Court was not transformed through politeness. State legislatures were not captured through etiquette. District maps were not redrawn through moral appeals. One side approached politics institutionally. The other side approached politics symbolically. And institutional politics defeated symbolic politics repeatedly, time and time again. That is the lesson Democrats are now confronting. This does not mean abandoning democracy. But if it does mean abandoning democracy, I'm with it. I'm with it all the way. It does not mean breaking laws. It means understanding that legal political power unused does not remain neutral. It gets used by the next person. And Democrats can no longer afford to behave as though aggressive legal structural action is somehow illegitimate simply because Republicans will criticize it. No. They don't care. The Republicans don't care whether the American people like them or not. The Republicans don't care whether the American people care what they do and how they do. They break the law. They don't break the law. They push the boundaries. They don't care. American people don't care. They didn't care that Donald Trump did whatever the fuck he did. So why should we care? Republicans want to criticize democratic action no matter what Democrats do. That reality is not going to change. So Democrats must stop organizing their entire strategy around the fear of backlash. Fuck y'all. Because backlash already is there. Question now is whether Democrats are willing to use lawful constitutional authority with the same seriousness and ruthlessness that Republicans use to build the current structural imbalance. That is what this entire conversation ultimately comes down to. Not whether Democrats become Republicans, but whether Democrats finally stop fighting with one hand tied behind a goddamn back while pretending restraint alone protects democracy. Because it don't. And the last 30 years have proven that. Okay? It has been proven.
Gives a flying if Donald law. Not a single one. They constantly defend what he's doing. They constantly defend him openly breaking the law. They do not care. And it's really sad to me that we're starting to see the flip side of that. We're starting to see that happen on the left. We're starting to see Democrats stop caring whether their side is breaking the law. And that's a really, really dangerous spot. Throughout American history, we've generally always had at least one side that believes in obeying the law, that says that the law is there for a purpose, that we need to respect it, we need to obey it, and generally respect the rule of law, which means that government must obey the law. And right now, Republicans have not given a shit about obeying the law for a long time. Now we're starting to see this, particularly where Democrats are starting to see, oh, wait, our institutions aren't doing what we think it should be doing. Therefore, we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's a really dangerous position for our country.
And this right here, these are the kind of Democrats and liberals that I can't stand. They want to stand within the law. They want to stand within the boundaries. They want to stand within the confines and still get beat up. Oh, they're beating me up. They're beating me up. But I'm a moral person. I'm a nice person. Let the Republican beat me up. Shut your ass up. Shut your ass up. Sometimes I hate liberals. Sometimes I hate these milquetoast Democrats. It's time to fight.
To be in. We absolutely need to return to the values of the rule of law, even if it.
No, we ain't doing that. We got to work outside the bounds because Republicans ain't restrained by doing that. So stop it.
restricts your own side, you need to be following it. It's sad, yes. It's terrible. It's horrible that MAGA Republicans do not care about the rule of law at all when it comes to their side. But if we don't obey it ourselves, we are only going to dig our country into a deeper.
Oh my God, we're losing our right to vote. This administration is sending us back to slavery. Oh my gosh, this is unconstitutional.
Dumbass. The verdict was set forth by the Supreme Court, which is the judicial branch. The executive branch of the United States has nothing to do with the judicial branch of the United States. There are 2 black Supreme Court justices, which means they make up 22% of, in my opinion, the most powerful branch of the government. But we are steady blaming the executive branch, President Trump, for their ruling.
We about to fact check this First, if you mess with me, make sure to hit that follow button. And this month is Haitian Heritage Month. Let's get it. What the hell are you talking about? First, the Trump administration did a big role on why Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act this weekend. Because if you didn't know, the president has the ability to nominate people to become Supreme Court Justice. And 3 out of the 9 Supreme Court Justices were nominated by Donald Trump. Now, the Senate does confirm the president's nomination of Supreme Court Justice. But these 3 was confirmed by a majority Republican Senate, which caused the Supreme Court Justice to be a 6-3 conservative supermajority. So it is the Trump administration's fault for why the Voting Rights Act has been weakened. But Republicans has been weakening the Voting Rights Act for years. In 2013, Republicans were able to weaken Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. This section basically stated that states with a history of racial discrimination had to submit their congressional maps to the government. In other words, the government had to approve the redistricting map. But in 2013, the Supreme Court ruled that the formula to determine which state actually had to do the pre-clearance was unconstitutional. Now, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has been weakened as well. And this section focuses on making sure that no state creates laws or procedures that hinders or even denies black people's right to vote. Now stating that we have to show the intent of racial discrimination happening and not the result of racial discrimination happening, which will make it more difficult to fight against racial discrimination when it comes to voting. So yes, you can blame Donald Trump and the Republicans for why black people's voting rights has been weakened.
Republicans love to say that they're patriots and they're true Americans, but right now they're sitting silent as we watch Donald Trump and his little minions ignore the Constitution and ignore the Supreme Court and the ruling of the Supreme Court. I'm going to show you a video in a second that, as if you're a U.S. citizen, it should terrify you. It should terrify you because we are watching Trump's minions blatantly, openly, 1, lie, of course, because that's what they do, and 2, willingly ignore the Constitution and the Supreme Court ruling. Watch, and we'll talk about it.
There is no scenario where Abrego Garcia will be in the United States again. If he were to come back, we would immediately deport him again because he is a terrorist, he's a human smuggler, and he is a wife beater.
You've read the Supreme Court decision. Does the Supreme Court decision not require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
Does. The Trump administration is complying with all court orders and judges' orders.
Does the Supreme Court order require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
Is a citizen of El Salvador. It is up to the president of the El Salvador to make the decision.
You're a defendant
on
in the
if he
case.
is coming back. It's been a big topic of conversation between all of us, between the country. When the president visited the United States of America, it was discussed and talked about there. The president has been very clear on this issue, as the Secretary of State, and I have as well. Abrego Garcia is not a citizen of this country and is a dangerous individual who does not belong here.
I will not.
And you notice that she don't care. This administration don't care whether it's legal or it's not legal. I'm saying we have the restraints as Democrats. We have the restraints of trying to do the moral high ground. They don't have that restraint. That's the restraint that needs to go away. That's the restraint that we got on our Senate side, specifically Chuck Schumer, who definitely needs to go because he don't want to fight. He want to stay in the trenches and do what he's doing. Hakeem Jeffries is giving us a little bit of fight, but we need more.
I'll ask another question,
If we were back in this country, we would immediately.
But the discussion ends when the Supreme Court rules 9-0 that you have to facilitate his release, and the fact that you can't even acknowledge the wording of the order, which commands you to facilitate his release, and you advertise to this committee that you are going to willfully ignore the ruling. And that is incredibly chilling for the balance of powers in a democracy that relies on the executive branch to honor decisions made by the highest court of the land.
Do you know what the most hypocritical part of all this is? Besides ignoring the will of the Supreme Court and the Constitution, It's the factor that these people are the same people that say Donald Trump is such a great businessman. He's such a great negotiator. He can get anybody to work with him. Yet he somehow has no power over the El Salvador prison or president, who he's literally paying millions or billions, I can't remember which one it is right now, to take these people. He can't do anything about it, right? No, he definitely can do it. He's just not doing it. And if you're still supporting Donald Trump, if you're still supporting this party after they ignore the Constitution, because everybody is guaranteed due process. We don't get to pick and choose who gets that.
Right.
That's not how the United States Constitution works. And it's not how it works where you can just ignore the Supreme Court. So if you are still supporting this, you are supporting fascism. You are supporting the breakdown of our Constitution and our freedom. And if you think this won't touch you because maybe you're white like I am, it will. I guarantee you it will one day touch you.
They don't care. They don't care. And I'm saying we can't care about it no more. As Americans, we can't care about it no more. We're not going to care about it. As Democrats, we're not going to care about what they think no more. We're going to pull the restraints out of there.
In order to shove a map down people's throats. If you don't respect the system, this may turn into a glory day for you. But if you do respect the system, this is an attack on the system at its core, okay?
Okay. As a California resident, I am really starting to feel like some of y'all are about to fail this open book test again. We are at the point where it is time to start choosing our candidates for our governor, and there are people who are completely ignoring the fact that two Republican candidates, two candidates who are very much followers of Donald Trump, two candidates who are very much about bringing MAGA, Project 2025, and everything Republicans have been doing over the last 2 years here.
You sound goofy as hell. Jesus saves, heals, and men. I don't understand, amen. I don't understand where y'all come in the door with Donald Trump as your baby daddy. How you come in the door with Donald Trump being your baby daddy and call us fascists when everything that president has done has been under the fascist umbrella? I don't understand maybe y'all trained like that since y'all been kids. There ain't no critical thinking skills going on in y'all's MAGA head. I don't understand.
To California, and for some reason, people are, as usual, grasping at straws. They are dealing with semantics. They are not focusing on the task at hand, which is to keep these people from being in charge of this state. I understand Democrats have been in charge here in California for a long time, but they have had Republican governors. This is not like red states where they have supermajorities and Republican governors and Republican everything, okay? This state has had a healthy dose of both parties in powerful positions. So anybody pushing this lie that everything wrong with California has solely been because of what Democrats have been doing is trying to open the door for Republicans and Project 2025 to take root here in this state. We're not talking about getting rid of your taxes as a working class citizen. That will not happen. We're not talking about finding waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. That will not happen. This idea that we need a Republican or we need to look for any other candidate but a Democrat because we need to see some effective change here in California right now is the exact same playbook that got Donald Trump into the White House. And it will be the exact same playbook that opens the door for a Republican governor.
You gotta be killing me. You guys killing me. The shit storm that we are in. You don't understand the shit storm that we are in because of Republican policies. You don't understand the shit storm that we in. Then that means that you're a zombie. If you don't understand the shit storm that we are in right now, and you're here blaming Democrats. I don't understand how y'all can be zombies and not even see the shitstorm around y'all. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe button, please, and thank you. I have this content at 10 o'clock every night.
Who will come in here and sell this state out to the president and Republicans and Project 2025 and everything that comes with that. They will be running up a deficit here in this state. They will destroy the economy of the state. We will not be the number 4 economy in the world if we get a Republican governor. We will not have any sort of protections from what is coming down the pipe. Now, do I believe that the politicians that have been here in California are perfect? No. And if you are sitting at home looking for a perfect candidate, you are in a bad position right now. I'm tired of people saying that voting for harm reduction is just as bad.
I don't think I said Trump at all. I don't think I said Trump at all. Where did you get that from? And you promote whatever policy. I don't understand what policies you're trying to promote. You're here saying there's something wrong with Democrat. What policies do you Republicans have? You don't have policies. You start wars, you crash the economy, and you pass tax cuts. That's all you do as a Republican. That's all Donald Trump has done. That's all y'all do as Republicans. How is that helping our country? How?
As voting for the people who are doing active damage, because once again, these are mostly people who are not dealing with the fact that they could be directly under attack by a Republican regime. If you are Latino, they will turn up ice on you. If you are black, they will try and disenfranchise your vote. If you are anything but the same type of people that they want to see have the wealth and resources, you are in danger if we get a Republican governor. I cannot say this loudly enough. If you don't like everything about a Democratic candidate, fine. But let me tell you this, that candidate is more likely to listen to your grievance and find a way to compromise, as opposed to the other party that will ignore you, do what they want, and laugh at you if you try and speak up against them. We just witnessed that take place all across the American South this week. California, we cannot afford to make that mistake here.
Another day, and we once again find ourselves in a situation where the left have bound ourselves by the rule of law but are not protected by it, while the right are protected by the rule of law but do not consider themselves bound by it.
That's bars. That is bars for real. We tied our hands. Us as Democrats tied our hands, okay? But the Republicans don't feel the need to restrain themselves, not at all. This is where we're at. We're in a lawless, unrestrained administration and country right now. And we need to take back that power. We need to take back that power because we are out of control. This country is out of control. Okay? Out of control. Okay?
Today, the Virginia Supreme Court overturned the results of Virginia's most recent election, which redrew state district lines to add more Democrat majority seats, which was done in response to...
Y'all sound dumb as hell. Some of y'all sound dumb as hell when the poorest and most crime-ridden states are Republican states. Y'all sound dumb as hell. Do your research and start running your mouth about stuff when you don't know nothing. Okay? When you don't know nothing, you just talking. Okay? Don't talk to me about nothing until you look at the most crime-ridden states, the poorest states, the most uneducated states, the least productive states are Republican states. Stop it.
Similar gerrymandering that was started by Republicans in Texas and other states. The decision to overturn the results was made basically along party lines of the court, with the 4 Republican justices in favor of overturning the referendum and the 3 other justices dissenting.
All that shit is on record. Jesus saves and heals. All of it is on record. I don't even need to argue about that. It's all on record. That's all you need to do is learn how to read.
Their reason for overturning the election essentially boils down to it happening too close to midterms for its results to be valid, an argument which would make perfect sense except that the court decided to define election as the entire early voting period in order to make this argument, rather than the specific date in November on which the election happens. Doing so not only contradicts how both Virginia and federal law define elections, as the Chief Justice said in her dissent, but also conveniently ignores decisions made unilaterally by Republican leadership in other states like Louisiana to overturn existing early voting results in order to redraw their own map to give Republican seats. So more of rules for thee, but not for me, which is hardly a new phenomenon.
And that's the whole point. My point is, we ain't going to be restrained anymore. They not going to be restrained. You never had the power.
Going to Democrats in January. Conventional wisdom, though, is a dangerous thing when it's a wave election, when conventions are thrown out the window. Let's look at some of the components of this. Virginia had ambitions, the Democrats in the Commonwealth, of swinging 4 Republican seats to Democrat through redistricting. Without the new maps, there are still believed to be a seat or 2, if not 3, Democrats can win in Virginia, even in the old system, even under the old maps. What's more, what is fueling so much of what appears to be a blue wave forming in November is a frustration with the electorate, including with independents, that they're not being heard, that their concerns about more foreign wars from a president who promised no more foreign wars.
Well, this president cooked y'all's ass. So he cooked y'all's ass. He cooked the country. No, he didn't cook us. He cooked the MAGA stooges. He cooked them. And they're the ones who put him in the pot. And now they finding out that he lied to you. But that's okay. Because we're going to autocorrect that. We're going to deal with that come November 2026. We're going to deal with that. Okay? Because nobody, more than half of the country motivated to vote. More than half the country is saying, hell no, we can't deal with this no more. We're not finna deal with this president and his bullshit no more. We are not going to be restrained like we've been, okay? Just ain't going to be restrained like we've been, okay?
They're concerned about prices, from fertilizer to gas, from a president who promised to lower prices on day one, is indicative of not being heard. And when you don't feel heard, you're more likely to vocalize your displeasure at the ballot box. And when a Supreme Court in Virginia overturns the will of the people, there's a fear that people haven't been heard. They made their choice. They drove to the polling place. They took the time to vote, and it got overturned by some judges. And that's only going to fuel the fires more and put in danger Republicans in Virginia in terms of holding their seats. And the same is going to be true elsewhere. When the Supreme Court moves to overturn the Voting Rights Act protections of congressional districts for black voters, and when states like Tennessee move so swiftly to overturn their maps and draw out black voters, they drew those maps so fast in Tennessee, I swear I've been to dinner parties. It took longer than it took them to get the new maps approved. Black voters will feel they're not being heard and will turn out in robust numbers. We don't know what that's going to mean in terms of electoral outcomes. There are a lot of endangered incumbents who don't even yet know they're endangered. So ignore conventional wisdom. Wave elections mean you have to throw out all the conventions.
It's insane to me how these people can gerrymander the maps. They can control Congress. They can control the courts. They can control the entire federal government. Not only do they control the federal government, they routinely stop Democrats from being able to function effectively.
Unfortunately, we have this lawless we have this lawless administration going on, and they have effectively neutered themselves, got themselves kicked out of office. If right now, today, if Democrats were in charge, Donald Trump would be impeached. That's how disliked, and this is how much this president has ran our country into the ground. So we're not going to be restrained, okay? We're not going to be restrained. Oh, you Black America, stop it! You ain't been looking at the news. The black voters are not. They're gonna turn out in droves. White people gonna turn out in droves. Hispanic people gonna turn out in droves. They're gonna vote against any Republican that they can. I don't know where you been, but you ain't been listening. You just listen to what you say. But what you say is not what's on the ground. What's on the ground is they're tired of this administration. This administration took them to war when they didn't want to go to war. They have seen the grift. This president is a scammer. This president is bought and paid for by rich people. People are beginning to see that. We told you that before you all voted for him. We told you he was a scammer. We told you that you were a victim, that you were a person who deserved to be scammed because you didn't listen to what he was saying. All of you who voted for Donald Trump, you got scammed. It just is what it is. Me, I would never have voted for him because I saw the scam right away. Anybody who voted for Donald Trump got scammed. He scammed the American people. Okay, so now everybody is waking up. That's all y'all got to do is go to Joe Rogan, go to Tucker Carlson, go to Candace, go to all of them people that voted for Donald Trump. Go to all of them big content creators, all of them people, and what's her name, Megyn Kelly. Go to all of them people and figure out what they're saying, because they see the grift. They see that they got scammed by Donald Trump. They see that he got scammed. Okay, everybody see that he got scammed. At this point, if you don't see the grift, you're just dumb. At this point, you're just dumb. At this point, can't nobody help you. If you support that, if you understand that you got scammed, there ain't nothing we can do. Ain't nothing nobody can. Some people can't be helped. It just is what it is.
Attention to what Alabama's Republican Speaker of the House just said loudly and proudly within 2 weeks of the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act, and within 24 hours of Tennessee changing their own law so they could push through a new congressional district map and disenfranchise the 64% black population in Memphis, Tennessee.
That certainly gives us an opportunity to look at those congressional districts again. Gives us
Bro, I'm just trying to figure out some random guy speak. I'm just trying to figure out, what are you talking about? What black politician do I have? What are you talking about? Barack Obama gave way more than Donald Trump. He passed way more legislation than Donald Trump. He was a way better president, way better human being, way better on every level. He's better than Donald Trump. Okay, so why do you keep talking to me about my black leader? My black leader was Barack Obama. I don't understand what you're talking about. So you're just dumb at this point. Stop telling me about my black leader. The best president we done had so far has been Barack Obama. So why do you keep talking to me about black leaders? You need to be talking about your mediocre white leader, Donald Trump. You need to be talking about your mediocre white leader. Don't talk to me about my black superior leader, because he's superior to your leader all day. What are you talking about? I don't understand. I don't have those leaders. My leader was Donald Trump. Was Barack Obama.
Chance at all of them if we get some reprieve from the courts, and so we'll see how that goes, and certainly hope that the Supreme Court will overturn Amendment 14 and gives us a shot to revisit those.
The 14th Amendment. If you do not know what the 14th Amendment is, you should find out really quick. It's pretty damn important. It is arguably the single most significant legal change to come out of the Civil War. See, following the Civil War, the leaders of the Confederate...
How? Wait a minute, hold on. I'm not having a conversation with dumb people who don't read the polls. I ain't gonna have a conversation with dumb people who don't read the polls. Why do you think they're rigging the elections, dumbass, jackass? The Republicans are rigging the election because they know they're losing. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Y'all wild.
Like Jefferson.
Y'all wild. I don't understand. I don't understand the delusion. I don't understand the retardation. I don't understand the zombie shit. For real. I don't understand the zombie shit. If you don't know, every person that you go, every news outlet, even your goofy Fox News, has said that Democrats are going to take the House. Why you over here saying dumb stuff? Why? I don't understand. I'm raging. I like that. I like that.
And Davis, they were not prosecuted and imprisoned. They went on about their merry way, and within a few years, these traitors were able to make their way back into state and federal government, which is why we have the problem we're facing right now. But the 14th Amendment was a way of us moving forward past all of this madness and bloodshed, okay?
Right.
And it provides for birthright citizenship for everyone born in the U.S. So that includes slaves who were born here and the children of slaves who were freed and so on. Pretty fucking important, okay? It also affords due process and equal protection under the law for everyone.
Right.
Okay? So it means like habeas corpus type shit. Like if you get arrested, they can't just imprison you without giving you a court date.
Right.
You get to go in front of a judge and make your case why you shouldn't be in jail. Yeah, that's pretty damn important, right?
Right.
All right, so the rational actor model of politics, of political science, or political game theory, stipulates that if you know what someone's motivation is super important. If you know what their motivation is, what is their goal, then you can figure out what their next move is to achieve their goal. Sorry,
Right.
something in my eye. That's my goal right now. Get it out my damn eye. In this instance, we don't know what the goal is, but we know what their next move is, and that is to get rid of the 14th Amendment. So I am not going to answer this question for you guys, but it stands to reason. I'm going to ask you a very important question. It stands to reason that if the 14th Amendment was not standing in their way of doing something that they want to do, of birthright citizenship and due process of law and equal...
Black America, they understand. Black Americans understand what's at stake here. They're not going to win without the black vote. Everybody hates Donald Trump. Black people are going to show up to vote for Donald. It's you black men who have betrayed the whole system. It's you black men and you white men. All the rest of us got the memo. We got the memo. Us black women and the bulk of black men, we got the memo. I don't know what you mean. We understand the danger of not voting. If you don't understand the danger of not voting, I can't help you. You said you were a Democrat. I don't believe you're a Democrat. I believe you're a Republican. That's what I believe. Because you don't understand none of the things I be telling you. And I ain't even left. I'm in the middle left. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, then you got the problem, because you can't be no Democrat if you don't understand what I'm saying to you. We got the memo. We know to come out and vote in November.
Protection under law was not standing in their way of doing something that they want.
22% of
shit
who were born here. And
Barack Obama was the best president that you ever had in your lifetime. Don't get that twisted.
The children of slaves who were freed and so on. Pretty fucking important, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It also affords due process and equal protection under the law for everyone.
Okay.
So
this guy. Here we go.
Congressional district in the state.
No.
So to take a majority black district like Memphis and split it up, pull it into 3 separate sections so it goes into rural Tennessee, if you are familiar with the state. They're taking a black district and stretching it out so that the white voters overtake the black voters in those 3 districts. That's deliberately trying to make one party have no representation. It is an abuse of power. If you are someone that believes that your vote should count, you should be angry.
The state of Alabama Congress, the state Congress. He wants to overturn the 14th Amendment, wants the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn the 14th Amendment.
What are you talking about? Some random guy speaks. What do you mean we don't have a policy? You name your policy. Your people are in charge. What is your policy? What is your policy? Why you keep asking me about my policy? What is your policy? I told you, Republicans don't do nothing except start wars, tax cuts, and crash the economy. They don't do nothing but them 3 things. Those are the policies of Republicans. What are you talking about? The policy of I don't need to tell you what the policies were under Obama. There you go. No policy, no plan equals no party. You right about that. That's the Republican Party.
I have a law degree. I can speak with a little bit of authority about this. That's not something the Supreme Court can do because the 14th Amendment is part of the Constitution. They can interpret the Constitution. They cannot strike down an amendment to the Constitution. That's not how anything works. So that's pretty stupid. But why would he want to overturn the 14th Amendment at all? We know that one thing is they don't like birthright citizenship. Republicans do not want the right secured by the 14th Amendment for any person who is born on U.S. soil to become a citizen by default of the United States and the state in which they were born. So they want that right to go away. But there is a more important and more nuanced point here. But there's another element to this. Republicans want the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, which is incorporated against the states through the 14th Amendment.
Republicans can never be allowed to lead the United States ever again, and I don't say that emotionally. I say that from a global perspective, because if we allow them back in leadership positions, if we allow them back into the presidency or Congress or even ambassadorship, then we're guilty by association. That looks like agreement or alignment with the things that Donald Trump has done if we allow this to happen again. Everything that Donald Trump has done on a global scale is now attached to the Republican identity. You got to keep that in mind. Once again, I'm not some geopolitical expert. I'm not some economic whiz. I'm none of that. What I do know, though, is people. I know how people connect. I know how to build relationships, and I know how they break as well. I said months ago that whole thing with Greenland, when they were sending out those threats to our allies, that this was going to blow up in the United States' faces, and it was going to be an issue down the line if they needed a favor done. Imagine your best friend slap you in public and call you a bitch, but 5 minutes later, they getting jumped and expect you to jump in. You probably gonna walk in the other direction. You might join in on the ass whooping. That is exactly what this Republican administration has done to long-standing relationships and connections that we've had for a very long time. I'm talking decades. On every level,
And then people look at this Republican Party like, oh, we're so good. No, you have ruined our relationships with other people. That's the problem. Ruined our relationships with other people. The Republican Party, they crash the economy, run tax cuts, and then they start wars. Those are the three things that Donald Trump did in his last term. He did it in this term. George Bush did it in his term. That's all Republicans do. They don't have any plan. They don't have any playbook. They just want to hold on to power. So now we understand how it is. We're at the helm. We're at the mercy of a grifter, a scammer for a president, a scammer who's always been a president, and we got zombie people that follow behind the scammers, but follow behind this scammer. We can't allow Republicans to get the presidency because y'all don't know how to govern. Our country is diverse and complex. We need people who understand that. Okay? This administration don't understand that. This administration is a scamming, power, war hungry, warmongering establishment. Okay? It just is what it is. Y'all hit the like and share and subscribe, please, and thank you. I appreciate it. I have content like this every day at 10 o'clock. Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock. Please and thank you. Please hit the like button. I appreciate it.
Run everything. We can't have this again.
Uh-oh. Republican Senator Barrasso from Wyoming just said the quiet part right out loud.
If the Epstein measure passes the House, will it get a vote in the Senate?
It'll come to the Senate. We'll take a look at it. If it passes the House, we'll see what it says. And we all want accountability and transparency. But to me, this is not about truth. It's not about justice. This is about an attempt by the Democrats to make President Trump a lame duck president. And I'm not going to aid and abet them in their efforts to do that. But you don't commit.
Oh, Senator. Let me just make sure I get this straight, Senator. You say that you don't want to aid and abet the Democrats' attempt to make Donald Trump a lame duck president, even though technically he already is, but that's besides the point. My next question to you would then be, what is in the files, Senator, that in your opinion should they be released, would then in turn make Donald Trump a lame duck.
Because he knows that Donald Trump is in the files. Because he knows that Donald Trump is right along with the pedophiles. It is what it is. The Republicans, they do three things. That's all they do. They crash the economy, they do tax cuts, and they start wars. That's all that they do. Historically, you can look back and tell that I'm not lying. But here's the thing. We cannot deal with this. We cannot deal with this or sustain this longer. They robbing the money. Has anybody wondered when they said that they were going to purge the government of all these people in these programs? What happened to all the money that they were supposed to be saving? What happened to all those savings of money? Does anybody know? They cut out all of these programs. They cut out all of these jobs. All these people lost all their jobs last year. They lost jobs. They closed up programs. They closed up cancer research. They closed up the grants. They pulled all that money back. What do y'all think happened to that money? What do y'all think happened to all of that money that we were supposed to be saving? Okay. Ain't nobody thought, what the hell happened? Because they've been stealing our money. They have been stealing it behind our back. How does a president sue his own people for $10 billion? How does a president sue his own people for $10 billion and not be a scam? Somebody please explain that to me. I don't know. How does our president sue us for $10 billion and it not be a scam? Somebody explain that to me. I would love to know that. Okay. I don't need to know none of Donald Trump's policies. I know his policies just fine. I know he didn't pass anything but the big beautiful bill, and you didn't get no money from it. You just got scammed. That's all. You just got scammed. And Donald Trump rug burned his people. Rug burned it, took gifts, take money, getting blackmail, went to war, all the things that this president has done. Okay? So here's the thing. This is the threshold that we Democrats find ourselves on. Okay? Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe button, please and thank you. I appreciate it. We have this content Monday through Thursday. Every Monday through Thursday at 10 o'clock, please and thank you. We're not at a messaging crosswords. We're not at a branding crisis. Not another election cycle where consultants argue over slogans and social media strategy. This is a structural crossroad. A structural crossroad. Because once a political movement realizes the rules are no longer operating symmetrically, its entirely understanding of politics changes forever. Our understanding of politics has to change. And that is what this moment represents. For decades, Democrats believed preserving the norm was enough to preserve democracy itself. Republicans in this administration don't care about constraint. They don't care about the rule of law. They don't care about lying. They don't care about immorality. They don't care about wars. They don't care about any of these things. Republicans in this administration don't care about the American people. They don't care what the American people want. They don't care. Okay. But they don't. Okay. That's the problem. They if Democrats cared about that, Republicans cared about that, it would be a different ballgame. But systems do not correct themselves, not automatically. Power shapes these systems. Power. And Republicans have done it systematically because they know they don't have any policy. Republicans know they don't have any policies. They know they have shit for policies. They don't have any kind of policy. There is no policy. Not one person in the chat can name one Republican policy. Not one. And kicking immigrants out is not a policy. This is a brutal lesson that Democrats are now absorbing in real time. Because while Democrats often approach politics as a moral persuasion, Republicans approach politics as institutional engineering. And one side focused on speeches, the other side focused on structures, one side focused on moments, the other side focused on performance or permanence, and permanence is going to win. That's why this conversation isn't really about partisanship. It's about understanding the relationship between structure and survival. Who draws the maps matter. Who controls voting access matters. Who appoints judges matters. Who controls state legislatures matter. Who controls courts, Supreme Courts matter. Because structures outlive personalities all day long. Structures outlive presidents. Structures outlive news cycles, scandals, slogans, hashtag Donald Trump with his scamming ass. And everybody who works for that scamming ass politician, Donald Trump. Structures determine what becomes politically possible long after the cameras are turned off. And Republicans understand that decades ago. Now Democrats face a defining choice right here. Do they continue to operate under the same assumptions built for a political era that no longer exists? Or do they finally accept that preserving democratic outcomes may require exercising power as aggressively as the Republicans exercised it to build this imbalance in the first place? Because ultimately, this entire conversation leads to one avoidable conclusion. The moral hesitation in Democrats itself became part of the problem. Not morality, not principles, but the belief that unilateral restraint would somehow inspire reciprocity from our opponent, the Republicans, who were never operating under the same assumptions to begin with. Democrats kept believing in the high road. Republicans always want to stay in the gutter. They thought they would be able to shame the Republicans into institutional restraint. Instead, the Republicans kept laying in the gutter because they don't care about the mud. They don't care about getting dirty. They don't care about lying. They don't care about the rule of law. And every single year, the Democrats hesitated structurally to do something about it. They didn't want to codify Roe versus Wade. Look what happened to Roe versus Wade. They didn't want to codify healthcare. They didn't want to do any of those things. And Republicans deepened their structural advantage and took that stuff, dismantled it. That's the reality now confronting the Democratic Party. And whether people agree with this new direction or not, one thing is undeniable. The era of passive and institutional surrender is done. A new political realism is about to emerge. One rooted in the belief that democracy is not preserved through etiquette alone, okay? It's preserved through structure, through law, through institutions, through courts, through governing power. And now Democrats stand at the edge of a new political era, one where the central question is no longer how do we sound more inspiring? We don't give a fuck about that. The new question is, are we willing to build lasting power? Okay? Because without lasting structural power, every victory becomes temporary. You need to codify some of this shit. Every reform becomes vulnerable. I gave y'all every election becomes survival mode. And that is sustainable democracy. The political era of gracefully losing is fuck over. Fuck out of here. The era of structural confrontation has to begin. So we have 6 things that the Democrat needs to do. 6 things. Okay? And I'm going to run through them again. 6 things that the Democrats need to do. Okay? Hold on. They need to reclaim the maps. Off the bat, we got to reclaim the maps. It just is what it is. Pass the John Lewis Voting Act. Expand the D.C. statehood. That has to be done. We can gain 2 or 3 senators from that. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act. We need to do that. Make sure that they don't gerrymander us out of existence again. We can't do that. Expand the Supreme Court if we can. If we can. Who knows? And then we need to stop being constrained by the moral anchor that is always around the Democrats' head, and which is never around the Republican. The Republican, they love staying in the mud. They don't ever want to govern. They don't want to govern us. They don't want to do the right thing for the American people. They don't want people to pick their representative. They want the representative to pick their people. That's the way they've always operated. They've always wanted to steal elections, take elections. They never want to govern. They always want power, and that's it. And that's the problem. The power, wanting the power is the problem. Did anybody ever wonder what happened to all that money that they saved from Doge? Anybody wonder about any of that? What happened to our money? What happened to our money? And now we're supposed to pay for this ball. The president said, "Oh, it's going to the American." No, we got private donations. They're going to pay for that. Now they want us to pay for it. Now Saudi Arabia wants us to give them money, taxpayer money. Now the president is trying to sue us. This is what I mean by this president is a scammer. This president has always been a scammer, and we have people who actually still support this scammer and who's going to continue to vote for this scammer. I'm just trying to figure out what happened to the money that was supposed to be saved. Okay. It's nowhere to be found. Nobody's looking at it. Nobody cares about what happened to it. Nobody.
A useless, powerless president. What could possibly be in the files that could have that much impact on the presidency? Because, Senator, I don't know who to believe anymore. The president of the United States says that it's a hoax, drummed up by the Democrats, and he has nothing to do with it. Whereas you say that the Democrats want to get these files released in order to make Donald Trump a lame duck president, thereby implying that whatever's in these files is detrimental enough to the presidency that he's going to be powerless should the files be released. And you don't want to be accused of being aiding and abetting to the Democratic scheme to make him a lame duck president, but Donald Trump says he has nothing to do with it, so how could he possibly be a lame duck president should the files be released? You see why I'm so confused. That's okay, Senator. I'm sure this won't affect your re-election bid whatsoever. But anyway, for the rest of us watching, the House vote is today. Make sure you tune in, 2 p.m. Eastern. Let's see how many Republicans break from Trump.
Let's see. Last but not least.
Phone banking, good white people. They don't mind living and being around black people. You see what we mean? You see what we mean when we say, no, Obama did not solve racism. That the entirety of the U.S. government right now, every department, every cabinet, every person put in place by that man, put in place to specifically harm black people. You see it. You see it, right? That has never happened to other people in this country except for indigenous folk. In 2026, the U.S. government is targeting black people. They demoted us in the military. They fired us from the federal government. They told companies get rid of DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative action, even though those programs benefit white people and white women more than anybody. Get black people, harm them, stop their progress, stop their political growth, stop their political power, stop them. And they did it all across the Confederate South with surgical precision. And he did it under the auspices of there's no more racism. They don't need any congressional districts. Where most black people live in the South, most black people live in the South that have the least amount of power is the Confederate States. It had never gone away. And so I'm saying to the good white people, not that you have ever, but you should never tell the black people that you know that the U.S. government is not racist. Now, I'm not saying you have, just a word of advice, because it is. It's systemic, and this is what we mean. All those departments, the Supreme Court, all those judges, everybody work for that man, have been working towards harming black people.
That's wild. That's wild. So this is where we are. Please hit the like, share. I have this kind of content, different kind of content, Monday through Thursday. I'd appreciate the like and share and sub. Okay. What questions did anybody have? What do you mean Biden didn't release the files? They were under investigation. Ghislaine Maxwell was still being investigated. Ghislaine Maxwell was still under appeal. Her case was still under appeal when Biden was president. So therefore, they couldn't release her file. Okay, that don't make sense. Black America, you don't know what DEI is, so I can't have the discussion with you because you don't know what DEI is. Otherwise, you would understand what it is and you'd understand why it was important. Okay. Don Lemon is married to a white person. That doesn't mean he doesn't understand systematic racism. That's goofy for you to even say. Just because we understand, that don't mean we don't understand what systematic racism is. Okay? That's just wild. That's just wild. But anyway, please, if you appreciate my content, like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. Hit the like button. I definitely would appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow evening at 10 o'clock with some more content. Okay? Some more content. Sure, I hate white people. Sure, if you believe that, I guess if you believe that, go ahead and believe it. But I don't particularly remember saying anything about me hating white people or black people or anybody people. I don't remember saying that at all. So please keep my name out your motherfucking mouth. I see you tomorrow. 10 o'clock. See you tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See y'all tomorrow, 10 o'clock.